Like, who was it from?
Oh, good.
Or it said it
It
was.
said it was for me.
They knew where you weren't running for reelection.
Oh, there you go.
Everybody else at 6:18 a.m.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Troy City Council, our Finance Committee meeting. It is May 22nd at 6 o'clock. I'd ask you to join us in opening with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilman Keel,
Present.
Councilman Brosnan,
Present.
Councilwoman McLaren,
Present.
Councilman Vera,
Present.
Councilwoman Sorrento,
Here.
Councilman Casey,
Present.
and Council President Steele, all present and accounted for. There are 2 seats up front here for those folks who are standing. I don't believe we have any more chairs. I apologize for that. But we'll get moving right along. This evening, we have before we have our public forum, we have a presentation on good cause eviction. I would ask the presenters to please come forward.
Copy of the presentation.
I know we were doing this right now.
Maria, to share, but I also have written copies as well.
Mark, we need the mic it's on the bottom of the mic. And feel free to hold it if it's easier for you.
Sure. Oh, here. Yeah, let's just hit the slideshow button. All right. So my name is Mark Speedy. Most of you know me by now. I'm a Troy resident and member of the Good Cause Troy Coalition. And I'm going to be speaking about good cause eviction, what it is, what it would mean for the city, and so forth. Next slide, please. So I'm going to be walking through, first of all, what good cause does, what it doesn't do, some evidence in support of it, and then lastly, why it's important to pass it in Troy specifically. Next slide. So first of all, what good cause does. So good cause offers tenants the right to renew their lease. That's one of the 2 main things that it does. Under good cause, landlords must offer their tenant a lease renewal or offer a month-to-month tenant a new lease. Unless the tenant has not paid their rent, they've committed a crime or repeated nuisance activity on the property, tenant has otherwise violated terms of the lease, they intend to reclaim it for personal use, or they intend to demolish or remove the unit from the market. So as you can see, there are still exceptions. There are the same usual ways that you would be able to remove a tenant via eviction. This is just saying that you have a right to renew your lease and stay in your home as long as you are, not in violation. Additionally, previous slide still. Left arrow on the keyboard. There you go. Additionally, good cause offers tenants protection from unjustified rent increases. So under good cause, tenants have the right to challenge any rent increases above what are considered above what is reasonable. So an annual rent increase is presumptively considered unreasonable if it's over 10% or 5% plus CPI, whichever is lower. Those are fairly high numbers for what a rent increase would be. Most landlords won't be raising rent by that much already. So it generally would not impact the day-to-day business of most landlords. However, we have seen a significant number of tenants who have experienced rent increases higher than that in recent years, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. Additionally, landlords may increase rent above that limit if they have a reason, like they have increased expenses, there were major repairs that needed to be done to the home, something like that. They can at that point, tell a judge like this is a reasonable rent increase because I have additional expenses. So exceptions, right? There are some things that good cause doesn't cover, right? So buildings which were constructed after 2008 are exempt for 30 years. This is to avoid having any negative impact on the construction of new housing, because we know that the housing crisis that we're facing is also an issue of housing supply, and we want to make sure we're continuing to encourage new development. Units in owner-occupied buildings with 10 or fewer units, which is probably almost every owner-occupied unit in the city of Troy, would be exempt to ensure those people have rights over, the home that they live in. Small landlords who operate only one unit. This is defined by the city opting in. I believe the legislation being brought forward by the council defines it as one. One of the main reasons for this is to avoid sort of the loophole of landlords having multiple LLCs for different buildings that make it difficult for a tenant to know whether or not they would be covered by good cause. Additional units with rents higher than the city defined threshold, that's a minimum of 245% of fair market rent, are also exempt. So those ultra premium luxury apartments, I have not seen any listings of apartments that are that expensive in Troy, but those are also exempt. Notably, good cause is not rent control. With rent control, a unit is set at a given rent. How much it can go up every year is defined by some sort of board. Good cause does not do that. It is about a landlord-tenant agreement. If a unit is vacant, a landlord can set first rent to whatever they want. They can meet whatever market value they intend to. It is only for a tenant who is already occupying an apartment that good cause applies. Additionally, there are some other exceptions like condos, manufactured homes, dorms not covered, and public housing and permanently affordable housing units. Those are already covered by good cause like legislation and therefore are not covered as well. Next slide, please. So some evidence in support. Good cause has been passed in lots of other places, at least 8 states, dozens of municipalities, and there has been some amount of research showing that it is beneficial. Research in 2019 found that good cause passed in California reduced eviction filings overall. More recent data out of Oregon is showing that legal aid lawyers have been seeing less displacement from no cause notices and extreme rent spikes. Additionally, we've seen evidence that good cause does not reduce housing production, which again is something we want to prevent in order to keep the supply high. And then we have also seen evidence that rent stabilization helps low-income residents to remain in a neighborhood. Particularly, this is important for neighborhoods that are gentrifying, where there are, more expensive units coming onto the market. Landlords might want to start getting tenants to move out so they can upsell. This helps to protect tenants from that. So why Troy specifically, right? So Troy is a majority renter city with a housing crisis. Good cause is just one part of a comprehensive solution for it. So some stuff about Troy. Rensselaer County has the highest eviction rate in New York State. Troy is the county seat with the most population in it. It's a majority renter city with over 15,000 rental units. Not all of those would be eligible for good cause. Some of those are public housing and whatnot, but a vast majority of those are units that would be covered by good cause. Additionally, 45% of renters in our metropolitan statistical area are rent burdened. That means that they are spending more than 30% of their income on rent. That really demonstrates how much rents are, burdening people in the area. Next slide. So People's Housing Report. So we conducted a survey of Troy residents in order to, figure out the case for good cause and how important it would be to people. So we collected survey responses from over 100 people in the city of Troy with an median income of $39,000 and a median rent of $1,450. That median income is for an individual, not a household. So and a decent number of these people had multiple adults in the household. But you can see just from those numbers that that is a very high rent for the amount of money that people are bringing in. And that's something that we have a lot of concerns about. Next slide. So of the tenants who responded, 70% of them would be eligible for good cause protections based on the units that they live in. Of those eligible tenants, 20% of them reported that they had experienced rent increases above the threshold allowed by good cause. For the past year, that would be something like an 8.7% rent increase. 20% of the people who responded to the survey had their rents raised by that much or more. Additionally, maintenance and repairs. One of the main cases for good cause is that it enables tenants to speak up when they experience problems in their apartments without risk of retaliation in the form of a non-renewed lease agreement. In our survey, 43% of respondents said that at least one of the issues that they had reported to their landlord in the last year was not repaired. You can see on the right our list of frequent maintenance needs. The most common is leaks and floods, followed by mold or other environmental hazards. Those are very serious concerns that can impact quality of life and things that we really should be getting repaired in a timely manner. We also found that 19.8%, almost 20% of residents felt uncomfortable contacting their landlord about needed repairs to some degree. And that is something that good cause could help with. Additionally, 7% of respondents reported that their living conditions in Troy are bad or among the worst places they've ever lived. That really speaks to the fact that there are people living in really destitute conditions in our city, and that this is a way that we could help, protect them. Next slide, please. Here are some testimonials. I won't read them all out loud. You have the sheets in front of you that you can read some of them in. I'll just read a couple of them. The first, large increases in rent have forced me to move apartments multiple times to find something that I can afford on my own as a single working individual. Another, I'm a disabled senior and I have to rely on others to help me if I'm forced to move. I want to stay where I am, but rising rents and declining property conditions may dictate whether I stay or go. These things demonstrate people are feeling, unstable, uncertain about the future of their housing, and costs are starting to push people out. And we want to be welcoming more people into our city and helping them stay. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we believe that good cause is good for Troy. Opting into it would provide essential due process rights, protect residents from unjustified rent hikes, and provide greater stability to our community. That is all the presentation that I have, though I would welcome any questions from the council on the details of good cause and what we have learned about the community.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions from the council? No?
Council President,
Councilman Vera.
I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about how a tenant may seek remedy for a violation of this. Is this something that would be enforced by the state, or is this something that a tenant would have to take up a civil case in court?
So this would be a civil case in court, similar to any other eviction filing, right? The tenant would have the right to challenge it in court. Same with the rent increases. If a landlord, hits a tenant with a rent increase above that limit, the tenant would have the right to challenge that increase in court.
Well, thank you. No other questions.
Any other questions?
President.
Councilmember McLaren?
Mark, what would you say in response to the idea that this is anti-landlord legislation?
I would say that most good landlords in the city of Troy would be completely unaffected by this legislation. Most good landlords want to keep long-term tenants. They're not raising rents more than 10% in a given year. And, they don't just kick someone out of their home for no reason. The landlords that this would affect are the ones that are taking advantage of their tenants. The ones that are not performing repairs, the ones that are not taking care of their units. We want to be holding those landlords accountable. And I think that everyone on this council wants to see that happen.
Thank you.
Tom, you have a question?
No.
Any other questions? Well, again, thank you. This has given us an opportunity to ask questions, so
Yeah,
We
thank you for the
appreciate it.
opportunity.
At this point, we have a public forum. It's to address the council on any agenda item. Now, just to clarify, the good cause eviction local law is for introductory purposes only tonight. We do have a resolution further along in the agenda that sets the public hearing on the good cause eviction for the local law. So we will certainly entertain comments on the subject. We also have a resolution, several settlements. We're leasing golf carts. We are approving our 5-year CDBG plan, Pride Month, and I guess that's it. So if anyone wishes to speak on any of those items, please come forward. It's the first come, first serve basis. Give your name and your place of residence. Make sure the mic is on.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Good afternoon or evening. My name is Brian Paz Hernandez. I am, hello, council members. I'm the co-leader of Troy Indivisible, and I live in Troy City Council District 5. I'm here to let the council know that Troy Indivisible, a large coalition of community organizations, and I all support the Good Cause Ordinance. Troy Indivisible is a local organization that works to defend democracy and fight for progressive policies. We have over 200 members. As council members, you were elected by the people to represent our interests as citizens of the city. It seems obvious that when the opportunity arises to protect a basic interest, such as housing, that you would do whatever you can in your power to support it. It's common sense legislation that has already been put in practice in 4 upstate locations like Albany and Rochester. Here in our city, we have a campaign funded by some landlords, a campaign designed to scare the community against good cause legislation with fear and misinformation. And so I want to help set the record straight, and the great presenter before me did that. It puts in place rent increase limits. Rent increases are capped at 10% or 5% plus consumer price index, whichever is lower. It puts in place eviction protections. Landlords must demonstrate a valid reason to evict a tenant. And this is really important because in Rensselaer County, we have the highest eviction filing rate in the state of New York. This legislation also puts in place renewable requirements for tenants on month-to-month leases or those with expiring leases. Landlords must offer the option to renew. The point about rent increases, I think, is really important. My income as a high school teacher isn't going up anytime soon. I live in Troy, and I currently pay $1,500 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. It's relatively affordable, but I don't know if I could afford it if my landlord suddenly decided to increase it past 8%. I wouldn't be able to afford it. And I'm not the only person in this situation. Inflation nationwide is increasing. Food, energy, and housing costs are all going up. And what can we do as a community to respond to that is by keeping local costs down. We need to limit rent increases. And when you introduce protections on people's housings, they're able to focus more on being productive members of our community. As a high school teacher, I can tell you that I have a student of mine who does not have consistent access to a working washer and dryer and is forced to wear dirty clothes to school. With good cause legislation, his parents would have the opportunity to wash his clothes more consistently. I can tell you that a student can focus more on their schoolwork rather than worrying about the threat of losing their apartment. And with affordable housing, a family can focus on raising their children in a stable and predictable environment. Last thing I'll say is that I understand that a number of council members have already stated they're going to vote against this legislation. I strongly encourage them to consider their position, reconsider their position. You know what's louder and more powerful than the campaign money from selfish landlords? The political power of tenants. You know what's louder and more powerful than campaign money from selfish landlords? Tenants showing up to rallies, tenants voting in this November city council elections. So to any council member that votes against this, the tenant movement in Troy will remember it in November. And we, the people, elected you to stand by us and deserve to have a council that protects our right to affordable rent. Please vote in favor of good cause legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Lucky me, I gotta follow that. That's gonna be fun. Hey y'all, my name's Tyler. I moved to Troy in August of last year. I'm also with Troy Indivisible, and since the move, I've come to love this city. I love Troy, from the farmers market to Riverfest to every other event we had that dots the calendar. Chowderfest, my personal favorite. And without a doubt, Troy has been the best place that I've been able to call my home. And I firmly believe that we should be joining other cities in passing good cause protections. Now, I'll say these protections probably won't benefit me directly. I am lucky in the landlord that I have. They are a great landlord. These protections wouldn't be brought against them. They wouldn't need to be brought against them. We don't have laws against stealing or murder because everyone just wants to pinch something or kill someone else. We have them because there are certain people in this nation, in this world, that don't share the same common decency that we all do. And they see their tenants not as fellow humans, but as piggy banks. It's disgusting. They have no issue raising the rent an obscene degree because of the free market. They couldn't care less if their tenants are a single parent or an elder on a fixed income, as was said in the testimonials, or if some college student who anything other than instant noodles is considered a luxury meal. Good cause protections would help the people of Troy. A vast majority of them are renters. It would allow them some protections from landlords who affect our community, just who see those tenants as nothing more than a quick buck, who could not care less how it affects our community when rents are so high that no one can afford to live in our city, where anyone can be evicted for any reason, and where the only value we place on another is simply how much they can make for our bottom line. I hope you'll vote in these favor of the protections when the time comes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tyler.
Hello, council members. Thank you for hosting this. I have been a resident of Troy since 1974 in the Sickaway area of Troy, which has grown to be quite a lovely place. When I came in 1974, it was not as nice as it is now, I can assure you that. I am a clinical social worker who bought a building on First Street, right at the corner of First and Division. And I had my practice on the first floor. I rented out the second and third floor for 32 years. I may have a skill set that a lot of landlords don't have, but I felt strongly that communication and respect were two important ingredients between the owner of the building and tenants. And, over the years, I've had many clients who were also in situations, though, that were not good living situations. And I really think that good cause is not, as the previous speaker said, is not going to harm responsible land owners. And that I'm active in Troy Indivisible, which is a growing movement. And I think people want to have a voice in some things. And, I speak as a owner of I just sold it after 32 years, but, it was, I would say in all the tenants I had, there was only one situation where I had to take the person to court because of lack of payment and non-communication and some destruction. In general, I've had wonderful tenants, and I have had tenants from undergraduate to graduate students to state workers to school teachers to beauticians. I've had all walks of life, male and female, who've been tenants. And as I said, I think a lot of landlords are in it for some of the wrong reasons. And, you know, as a landlord, of course, you depend on getting rent, but you have to treat the people with respect. And I've always said, if there's a problem, come talk to me, whether it's a maintenance problem or anything else. And a lot of issues can be resolved if people are communicating with each other. And unfortunately, we're at a time when there's a lot of divide between people. And, you know, I think a lot of bad relationships between the tenants and landlords when they're there are because of, you know, issues that didn't get addressed sooner and they build up, and then there's a lot of anger, or there's, you know, these ridiculous rate increase or other grounds on which to have somebody. So I encourage you as the council to adopt this good cause. I think that there's something to be gained from it and really nothing to lose. Thank you.
Thank you, Doris. Let the record show that our previous speaker was Doris Tomer from District 3. Doris Tomer, Tomer, District 3.
Hello, my name's Silva. Can you hear me with the mask?
Yes.
Excellent. Hello, Council President, council members. My name is Silva Menard. I'm a resident of Troy, and I'm also a local landlord. As a landlord in Troy, I want to speak directly and honestly to you about my initial thoughts on Good Cause, because when I first heard about it, I admit I was a little wary. My worry is that it might add undue burden on landlords or create complicated new regulations for our businesses. Those early concerns are obviously understandable, but now, having done some research, I know the truth. When I had the chance to look into what Good Cause legislation actually is, my hesitation and fear fell away. I realized that, as a responsible landlord, I was already doing most of what Good Cause covered, if not all of it. And I've been doing it for years. I've kept rent increases reasonable. I've made sure any evictions are for compelling legal or contractual reasons. And I've offered lease renewals unless there's a legitimate reason not to. To put it plainly, if you're already operating like an ethical landlord, then you have absolutely nothing to fear with Good Cause legislation. It should have no impact on the way you do business because it is about being a professional and principled property owner. That's it. In fact, one of the biggest concerns I had when we took over leases that were probably 25% of the local average and rental rate was that we wouldn't, if you can't pay for repairs, insurance, or taxes at those low rates, you have to institute a rent schedule that increases over time. And in fact, Good Cause includes an exemption when significant repairs, insurance, taxes, or other costs are too high that protects the landlord too and allows the landlord to increase rent to cover those costs over and above the 10%. So I encourage those in the rental industry to do their due diligence and research what Good Cause actually is. It's posted online. Listening to rumors or assumptions doesn't help us as business owners, only the truth does. I support Good Cause legislation and hope it becomes a part of what makes Troy a wonderful place to call home. I've been here for 19 years. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Silva.
Good evening, council members. It's nice to see you again. My name is Frankie, and I'm a long-term renter here in Troy. As I'm sure you recall, I've spoken to you a number of times about Good Cause legislation, which I continue to wholeheartedly support. I'm incredibly pleased to see that Good Cause is finally on the agenda for introduction tonight. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge Councilmember Vera and Councilmember McLaren directly for their efforts to get this proposed legislation on the table for discussion. The two of you have shown the people of Troy and your fellow council members exactly what good governing looks like. The public, who elected you and pays your salary, presented you with legitimate concerns about housing safety, stability, and affordability. You listened carefully, followed up with your own independent research, asked questions, and requested more detailed information. After doing your due diligence, you both arrived at the sensible conclusion that good cause legislation would benefit renters in Troy without causing any discernible harm to honest, reputable landlords. Now you're taking the next logical step to propose a local law that will strengthen our community, that will help protect a wide range of people, thousands of people, and will give tenants the tools they need to push back against the unscrupulous landlords and private equity profiteers who are diminishing quality of life in our city. The two of you did all of this in the best interests of Troy, just like we elected you to do. So I want you both to know that you have our respect and you have our deep appreciation for doing your job with such care. I hope your colleagues on the council take note and aspire to do the same as they're presented with information about good cause and how it might affect Troy's tenants and landlords. Thank you again, Council Members Vera and McLaren, for all your efforts on behalf of the community.
Thank you, Frankie.
Hello, I'm Brian, and I'm a tenant here in Troy, and I'm a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I am currently being forced to move due to unreasonable and drastic rent increases. No improvements are being made, and costs have not increased. My corporate landlords just want more money. Good cause eviction protections would protect tenants like me from the greed of corporate landlords. Tenants are the majority of people here in Troy. Our landlords have immense power, the power to take away our lives of dignity, to take away our homes, just so that they can line their pockets a little bit more. An additional $200 a month is a drop in the bucket to these people who own properties all over the city. But to renters like me, it is enough to create dangerous uncertainty. I will luckily be fine. Others who are evicted will not. Evictions cause devastation for families, and City Council has the opportunity tonight to reduce this devastation. The good cause eviction law would prevent renters from being evicted for no reason. It would prevent us from being arbitrarily priced out of our homes. It would mean some certainty and stability for us to be able to plan the future here in Troy. Automatic lease renewals provides stability for people looking to have families in Troy without the worry that landlords could get a whiff of higher profits and kick them to the curb. We deserve these protections, and we are willing to fight for them. What type of system ignores the plight of the majority of its people for the benefit of the tiny minority? It is not a democracy, that's for sure. The City Council has an opportunity tonight to put democracy into action. The people of Troy, the working people, the tenants, are here demanding that the City Council pass good cause eviction laws. The majority is right here in front of you. If you do not vote for this, you will never have my vote for any City Council race. And I speak for the majority of tenants when I say that. Righteousness, justice, and democracy dictate that the City Council votes to opt in good cause protections for tenants. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Good evening, everyone, council members. My name is Sean Collins. I'm a union representative and organizer with the Service Employees International Union, and I'm a delegate to and president of the Troy Area Labor Council. I reside at 118 7th Avenue in Lansingburg, South Lansingburg. What I should note is one of the poorest census designated districts in the state that is also majority tenant. The Troy Area Labor Council, we are the voice for the AFL-CIO's affiliated unions in Rensselaer County. Our over 40 affiliated unions represent over 10,000 union members across Troy and Rensselaer County. I'm here this evening to urge the City Council to adopt the good cause legislation introduced by Council Members Vera and McLaren that will enhance and improve tenant protections in our majority renter city. While my comments this evening are directed at the entire City Council, they are specifically directed at Council Members Ryan Brosnan and Tom Casey, who I understand are both union members but have also expressed publicly and privately their opposition to this legislation. As a trade unionist, I believe firmly that all working people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless in what capacity they work hard to earn often meager wages to support, to feed, to care, to clothe, to house themselves and their families. A roof over your head, food on your table, necessary care for your body and mind, a time and place for leisure and rest, a place to create memories, to raise and love your children. These are basic but essential dignities that all working people are entitled to. Accordingly, as a union representative and a union member, I believe that employers should have cause, call it just cause, call it good cause, to deny working people the means to provide these essentials to themselves and their families. The concept of cause is not a foreign one to the city of Troy. Just cause is already the standard of disciplinary action, whether it be an alleged minor infraction or for more severe allegations leading to suspension and termination currently afforded to Troy's unionized workforce. I advise everyone here to look at those contracts. It's in the management rights clauses of all those agreements. This right is enshrined in the collective bargaining agreements between the city and its various bargaining units. Tom, you're familiar with this concept as a former union firefighter here in the city of Troy. And Ryan, you're afforded the same right as a union electrician. Good cause eviction extends the same principle as just cause afforded to our city's workers, to our city's tenants. If just cause provides an assurance that you are more than the sum of your mistakes on the job, then good cause ensures that you are not just simply a tenant who can be easily replaced if you demand accountability from your landlord or object to excessive rent increases. Good cause no more punishes landlords taking legitimate action against errant tenants than just cause prevents city managers from taking necessary disciplinary action against employees who violate its rules, policies, and procedures. It provides essential checks and balances in what is otherwise a fundamentally asymmetrical dynamic between the owner of multiple housing units and an individual who needs one of them. Ryan and Tom, if you vote no on this legislation, you are saying to working people, too bad for you because I've got mines. Cause is good for me, but not for you. For you to vote no, in my opinion, suggests that you not only oppose good cause eviction, but maybe you don't believe in the just cause protections should be the standard of disciplinary action for our city's workers. I don't understand how you square the inconsistency otherwise. Particularly you, Ryan, as a tenant on this city council and one who has experienced retaliatory eviction, as your constituent, I'm incredibly disappointed if you were to vote no on this legislation. At this moment, I consider you to be a cautious voice of reason and a caucus of otherwise unquestioning rubber stamps for this city's very incompetent administration, an administration who could tell residents in no uncertain terms they don't deserve housing, they don't deserve protections against its denial, but they can't otherwise communicate in a transparent fashion how it spends our tax dollars. If you vote no, I would be incredibly disappointed, just to reiterate. It would really call into question your convictions in unionists, in my opinion. It's an election year, as other folks have pointed out. Voters are watching. Most of those voters, it needs not be reiterated, but they are tenants. They will remember those who stood with them to ensure that they have necessary housing. They will remember those who could care less. For my part, as Troy Area Labor Council's president and as a proud member of this coalition of supporting good cause, I commit to making sure that they don't forget. Do the right thing tonight. And, this shouldn't be, some political partisan issue. How moments of crisis can hit any one of us, anyone in the city at any moment. Denying them housing or introducing further complications to securing housing can compound such crises. Costs for goods and services, as others have mentioned, across the board are rising, and many Trojans are already stretching $1 to the max. Something as commonplace as a flat tire can be so disorienting, it can just exacerbate that crisis and be the cause of missing rent, being the cause of having to forego necessary medical treatments or whatever the case may be to prioritize rent. These are the balances that working people make on a day-to-day basis. Union members should know this. Working people need help. They need your support. This legislation does that. I hope you do the right thing this evening. Thank you. I would also be remiss to note that the city is actively engaged in collective bargaining with two of its unions, the CSEA and the Troy Firefighters. I urge you to continue to hold the mayor accountable and provide regular updates on those negotiations and provide them wage increases to afford the rents in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
I should have picked a different spot in line. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan. I use they and them pronouns. I'm here to talk on 2 points tonight, but really both points kind of target the same thing, which is the folks in Troy are really tired of seeing our most marginalized, most oppressed folks be more and more oppressed by just not listening to us. So the first thing I want to talk about is good cause. I'm the founder and board chair of Color City Pride. We happily endorse good cause policy and legislation. It benefits not just the queer community, but every marginalized group of folks in the city, especially because Troy is a majority renter city. I happen to be a renter in Troy, who earlier this year, after signing a year-long lease in August, was given a non-renewal in January for a lease that was supposed to expire this August. I'm assuming because of all of the repairs my apartment needed, but I'm not needed to give an excuse or a reason. So if you needed, some like real world experiences, I hope that you've been listening to everyone who's coming up here tonight, because I know that my story is definitely not unique. I think that it's the bare minimum to ask that we as the majority renters in the city are able to actually live and survive in the city that we want to be in, especially because we're the reason that the city functions, right? We're the reason that the city is doing all of the wonderful things that Troy is doing right now. And we can't do that if we have nowhere to live, and it's not getting cheaper. So I really hope that you take that up in your minds tonight when you're thinking about good cause. This group has been working really hard to kind of educate and let folks know what's happening in the city of Troy, and I really hope that you're listening. The second thing that I wanted to speak on tonight is the Pride resolution that was introduced. I want to thank the minority of the Dems, as well as Ryan, for working so closely with Color City Pride in the last few weeks. As you know, we have moved our Pride Festival out of the city of Troy due to the silence from our mayoral administration beginning in November and culminating in our meeting in April. And I just want to really thank you for your support and for bringing this forth. And just to remind folks that it is an election year and we are paying attention. I happen to live in District 1 now, which, as if I can recall, was the one vote no on last year's Pride resolution. So I look forward to working with my council person on why that was a voted no on the Pride resolution, because I know when we spoke last year, you told me that it was because folks had told you to vote no. So I'm really interested in hearing more about that now that I am a constituent of yours. So I really hope that we are going to continue to listen to everyone who's coming up tonight to talk about good cause. That's the focal point of the night. But really, I think the overarching view is that there has got to be some kind of accountability here in the city of Troy. And if our leaders are not going to make that accountability happen, then we as your constituents are going to have to make it happen ourselves. So thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Good evening, Council. David Banks, District 5. I'm also the Secretary of the Troy Area Labor Council. And, you guys got a whole PowerPoint presentation. Lots of people have told you, the basics of this, the really straightforward facts of this. So I just really want to tell a story because, my mom visited last week, and moms, they remember more about your life than you do. And she was telling me, on the 20th, what's today? The 22nd. Yeah, on the 22nd, you will have lived up here 15 years. They're like, wow, yeah. So today is my 15th Troy anniversary. Yes, thank you. Yeah, great decision on my part. Pat me on back. But the first place that I lived in Troy was actually where Nodders is now, on the 3rd floor, right on Broadway and 5th. It's on the 3rd floor in a 1-bedroom. Great, $600 a month. Can never find that anymore. And but I was getting what I paid for. It wasn't a great place, and the landlord there didn't have any carbon monoxide alarms in the whole building. It was hooked up to gas. No carbon monoxide alarms. And Tom, you'll appreciate this. We bought our own, right? Because that's a good idea. And so we put it up. We're on the 3rd floor, right? So if it goes off, the whole building is full of carbon monoxide. And one day it did. It went off in the middle of the night. It went off. We couldn't get in touch with our landlord. He wasn't answering the phone. So we called the fire department, right? And they They're like, well, we don't have anything else. We don't hear anything else about this. They couldn't get in touch with him. We gave him every piece of contact information we have for the guy. And so good enough for them. They busted down that guy's door. Had to crack open the door, get in masks, go down, turn off the gas. And the carbon monoxide alarm that we bought on our own saved everyone's life in that building that day, along with the Troy Fire Department, right? So I'm not gonna, a lot of people could have died that day. That could have been, or it could have just exploded. I don't know. There's just like a ton of things that could have happened that day because a slumlord who owned multiple buildings in this city at the time just couldn't be bothered to buy a carbon monoxide detector, just for the low bar that good cause is, it wouldn't have even like forced him to buy a carbon monoxide alarm for this building, but it maybe would have made it a little less lucrative to run his buildings like that, and this is and it was also something where like if I told him that he should get a carbon monoxide alarm, I wouldn't suddenly find myself, without a renewable lease, right? So like I just want to impress upon you guys that like this isn't about people wanting a cheap rent or something like that, which this is not going to provide. It'll just slow it down a little bit. This can be a life and death situation. I hope you treat it as such and you think about it as such. And the last point I want to add, because this is, I researched these things, and I know that 15 years for me, in Troy here is not the same as being born here. And I know that there's like a lot of people who take a lot of pride in having lived here their entire life, and I think you should. And I think I hear a lot of complaints about like how the city changes a lot, as new people move in, and I can understand, like that's an issue. That is a lot of people kind of laugh that off and like, oh, old Troy, but a bunch of cranks. I love cranks, but the point really is that like it's okay if you're concerned about your city changing. That part of that is gentrification, and good cause is going to help you keep your city, right? Like the churn over and over and over of people coming and going has a lot to do with how expensive it is and how terrible the landlords are. And so if you want to keep a neighborhood that's diverse in income and quality and life and their life course and who's lived here for a long time and who's a newcomer, if you want to keep all of that, then good cause is an essential component of keeping a city vital. Otherwise, of course you get people who just come and go and have no care or depth of feeling about a place, right? It's because they're reflecting the care that they receive. I'm not going to give a fig about the place that I live if it's trying to kill me with carbon monoxide, right? So if you care about Troy, if you don't want to see it change overnight, if you want to keep people safe, you have to support good cause. And I have to reiterate exactly what my labor brother Sean said here, that I implore that if you think just cause is good enough in your labor contracts, it's good enough for every lease contract in this city. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for having us here and listening to all of our comments. My name is Nicole Marjasso, and I'm also a member of Troy Indivisible, and I'm also a Troy resident, a first-time homeowner. I live on Spring Ave and a former renter here in Troy. And I'm also someone who experienced homelessness as a child. Good cause legislation has the ability to protect the most vulnerable in our community. Homelessness is an issue that the pandemic only made worse across the country and also right here in Rensselaer County. In these chaotic times, especially after a global pandemic and increasing costs for basic goods, it is now time to introduce legislation that protects vulnerable communities at a community level. Homelessness impacts communities by straining resources, affecting public health, breaking up families and generating long-term cycles of poverty. Homelessness can cause families to separate and negatively impact children's physical and mental health, education, and development. Long-term, homelessness can lead to a cycle of poverty, unemployment, and social isolation, making it difficult for people to overcome the challenges they face. No one wants to see this happen for our community members. This legislation is a direct, common sense preventative measure that can help keep people housed in these uncertain times. I absolutely support this legislation as a citizen of Troy, and I hope that you all do as well. There's two other pieces I want to share of personal stories. One is I had a friend come over a couple weeks ago. She lives in Lansingburg, and she was telling me about two things I was thinking about as I'm sitting here tonight listening. One is that she's in an apartment. She's been there for quite some time. She's a cleaner. That's her profession. So her home is very clean. But unfortunately, the building she lives in is continuously rodent infested. Additionally, she told me that her front door has been broke for so long because the management's just unresponsive to requests for repairs, that she had to physically, the door had completely come off the hinges, and she had to, with her family there, move the door off the hinges. So she recently tried to fix it herself, but doesn't have the skills or tools to fix it properly. So she was describing this ridiculous door that she tried to fix the hinge on herself. I think the worst thing about it is I wasn't really shocked or surprised. This is absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. The second story I want to share is my ex-husband and I, we split up a few years ago and he moved to downtown Troy. The first apartment he had was right here on 4th Street, just a couple blocks away. And unfortunately, his apartment, and I guess the building, was so infested with cockroaches that he had to leave. And he had our kids, who were little ones at that time, half of the week. Their stuff got so infested that it followed them for 2 more apartments. And again, my ex-husband's like a tidy person. And the saddest thing about that to me is not even their public health. It's like the shame that they felt over a shitty landlord who couldn't provide basic, dignified safety for their well-being. So the reality is that we only have renters' rights because people fought for them. People advocated for them, right? Like when we're going back a few hundred years, there's so many things people had to do in order to just get to what we have now. And with Rensselaer County having the highest eviction rate in the state, which is just really disappointing. I have a lot of pride in Troy and in our county. It's really disappointing to hear that. It's time we need to make that next step for these basic rights to just dignified living. And you as our leaders are the people to do that on behalf of us. And I hope you will. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Howdy. Good evening. Is this thing on? All right. Hey, good evening. My name is Jordan Lean. I live in Fair Park neighborhood in Troy. Sorry to jam up your council chamber again. The rain chased our rally inside. It's hard to operate in the rain. You know, I heard the tent restaurant, when it rains, it floods. You can't even use it. You spend so much money on a tent and don't get the cement foundation right. What a shame. But while the rain may have dampened our rally, it has not dampened our enthusiasm for good cause eviction protections. And now I know what's on the agenda isn't the law itself. It's a resolution to start discussion on the law. That's good. It gets the ball rolling to the point where you vote on the law and we get you on the record. We find out who here supports keeping rents reasonable, who supports rent hikes, who supports keeping Trojans in their homes, and who supports putting Trojans out in the streets. We want you on the record for that. But I will say, there is part of me that wants you to vote this resolution down. Because if the majority cracked open Robert's rules and found some Weasley little, technically we're not voting against the law, way to vote against the law, not only are you not fooling everyone, you're showing everyone how afraid you are of the tenant power building. You don't even want to actually go on the record against it. It makes you quake in your boots and write panicked Facebook posts and go running to landlords for money. And honestly, that's great. You vote in favor of the resolution, we get you on the record for the law. You vote against it and you show your yellow bellies and gelatinous spines. And either way, I can't lose. I can't lose. And it's great when you can't lose. And I know, and everyone behind me knows, that in the long run, good cause eviction protections can't lose. They will be here in this city, whether you all in this here right now or on city council when that happens or not. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Jordan.
Hi. Hi, Rachel Rampel. I've spoken before. I also live in the Freer Park neighborhood. I'll keep it short. This is directed at the majority. You should be concerned for your reelection chances, not just because of the things that you have purported to oppose. You should also be concerned about the things that you support. I'm talking about the golf course. One of the biggest lies the city tells is that our golf course makes a profit. Taxpayers subsidize golf in Troy. You all know it. You also know that only a minority of people play there in the city. The vast majority of people in Troy are not enjoying this amazing, beautiful park. I agree that it is the jewel of the city, but it is for exclusive use of a very small number of people. And between the tent itself and between this golf cart contract that you're going to vote on tonight, you will have spent this year over $1 million. Why? Because the tent itself, $660,000, right? And the golf course contract, $330,000 over 5 years. So I want to be real clear. I know that all of you have heard complaints from residents about the tent restaurant. They think it was a huge waste of money. The mayor has also heard from all of her neighbors about how much they hate that tent restaurant. So you're just, with the golf cart contract and really any more money that you're going to sink into this golf course that we do not make a profit on, you're just going to alienate more and more and more people. So I really want you to consider not just the things that you are slated to or strongly considering because you've taken money for opposition. You should also be concerned about the things that you will vote in favor of. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Hi, my name's Jude. I'm a resident of Troy. I'm an organizer with Good Cause Troy and with Troy DSA. I've been up here before a couple times. You'll have to forgive me, my handwriting's a little bad today. But I'm really thrilled to see that Good Cause is on the agenda finally after a year since it passed statewide. There's a fact I shared with the folks outside that I'd like to share with you now, which is since Good Cause passed statewide, 259 holdover evictions have been filed in Troy. The majority has framed us as people who don't want to pay rent. So for context, a holdover eviction is when people continue to live in their homes, continue to pay rent once their lease has been terminated. That's 259 families who, even if the eviction didn't go through, have an eviction on their record for the next 7 years. And finding housing for them is going to be that much harder. So you've heard from landlords, you've heard from union members and organizers, you've heard from tenants, business owners, homeowners, you've heard from us for months. You've heard data and you've heard personal testimonies. Who else do you need to hear from? Tell us, we will bring them to the public comment period. Is it the developers donating to your campaigns? New builds are exempt from Good Cause, so that's not an issue. Is it the landlords signing checks for your campaigns? Councilmember Casey said that most landlords want to do the right thing. You should wonder who doesn't, who's outside that most. Unfortunately, we know it's those campaign donors. So if that's the voice most important to you, you should spare a thought towards your constituents. Our pocketbooks might not be as deep, but we're the ones that'll count on election day. And tenants will remember who supported their rights and who didn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude.
Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm a social worker and a parent, and I live in Troy. I've been a tenant here for about 3 years. But soon I'm going to be a homeowner in Scotia. Over the past 3 years, the neighborhood I lived in up the hill near RPI transformed before my eyes as family after family was pushed out of their homes as their landlords determined that they could make more money by renting to students. I would have loved to purchase a home in my neighborhood here in Troy, but the instability caused by landlord greed and lack of basic protection for tenants turned a desirable multi-generational family neighborhood into student housing with no sense of community or connection between neighbors. I knew that it was no longer a neighborhood that would be a good place to raise my now 4-year-old child. Good cause will provide basic stability and safety for tenants, leading to communities that are more desirable for both tenants and homeowners. I hope you will do the right thing and vote for good cause protections for the good of Troy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia.
Hello, everybody. My name is Greg Campbell Cohen, and I'm a tenant in District 6, South Troy. I have not always lived in South Troy. Previously, I lived in Mount Ida, and before that, Lansingburg, and actually about half a dozen other properties around the capital region. I'm not blessed with a very high income, although, you know, comfortable enough. I don't relish in the experience of moving. It's not that nice to haul around my massive collection of lead pipes from apartment to apartment, but I do it. Almost every time that I've moved, with one exception, the reason has been that repairs were not being made on the apartment, and there was no way to reach the person. And frankly, I did not trust any of the processes where I had individual recourse, ostensibly, to play out in a way where I ended up in that property for a long time. And some of those properties were very beautiful. And I would have loved to have stayed in Lansingburg, especially. It was a gorgeous property, and I still miss it. I also want to comment on good cause as a policy more broadly. Some of the ways that the language of the legislation has been discussed is as if it has been divined, and it's just sort of a random assortment of words that just became a law. As you guys know, probably when you were looking at your options with good cause, the state legislation is quite prescriptive. There's not that much that you can change. How that was arrived at was after 3 years of very intense deliberations between organized tenants, progressive groups, unions, a lot of civil rights organizations, the real estate lobby, organized landlords, and eventually what they arrived at was a compromise that nobody was really happy with, but was good enough for a lot of people and was reasonable for the real estate lobby. And so what I am curious about is why, when we now have so many cities across the state that have opted in, what is wrong with Troy landlords that they can't be held to the same standard as Binghamton landlords, or Kingston landlords, or Poughkeepsie landlords, or Newburgh landlords, or now a dozen other cities and towns across the state where somehow this hasn't broken apart their housing market? So those are my comments. I obviously support good cause. Real Greg heads know that in my past, it was a professional interest of mine, but now I am just a volunteer enthusiast. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Good evening, everyone. Stephen Maples on 2nd Street. So I've got a few quick comments. Good cause. This is just a basic tenant right protection, which stabilizes our neighborhoods and improves public safety. Yes, public safety. Most landlords that we've talked to support these protections because most landlords that are of our community got into the business because they want the stability that this would bring to our neighborhoods. They know, just as tenants do, that landlords the landlords that are the most abusive and exploitative are at the root of much of the instability and public safety issues that their neighborhoods experience. The pursuit of maximizing profits without concern of how those decisions affect the neighborhood and the larger community lead to high turnover, buildings that are left vacant and which degrade to the point of being demolished, and increased strain on social services. While good cause alone can't address all of those issues, it can go a long way. Really quickly, to the ADA settlement, this settlement should serve as a wake-up call to both the administration and the council. We are failing in our duties to provide accessibility to our neighbors, denying them full participation in their own lives. This is unacceptable. While the city has completed an ADA transition plan, it's important to note a few things about that plan. Troy has over 150 miles of sidewalks that were assessed for compliance. 62% or nearly 94 miles require repair or improvement. The city of Troy has set a goal of bringing 4.25 miles of these segments to compliance each year, which means that the city will be in compliance in approximately 20 years. The plan's scope, as per the law, the ADA transition plan scope is prescriptive by the law, and it only evaluates existing sidewalks and facilities, and it doesn't address new sidewalks that are needed. So what this means is that the actual amount of mileage that we would need to both build and repair is even higher than that. That's the reality that we're talking about. The bottom line is that the transition plan delivers the bare minimum on a timeline that is frankly unacceptable to anyone who values inclusion, accessibility, and mobility as the administration has said it does. I hope that the council agrees on this point and will take the settlement to be a signal not only to ensure the administration's compliance with the transition plan, but will seek to create policy to actually achieve an inclusive, accessible, and equitable mobility plan for all Trojans. And finally, the golf carts. I personally do not think that this council should agree to a single dollar of appropriations to the golf course without a condition to establish an enterprise fund for it, just as many other municipalities do, such as Schenectady. They're already doing it. And to do so by the end of this, to commit to it by the end of this fiscal year, or as soon as is practicable, whichever happens first. This will provide the appropriate means to actually understand the degree of public subsidy and allow the residents in this council to make fully informed decisions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen.
Good evening, council members. My name is Anya. I am here today with the Good Cause Troy Coalition. I am a renter here in Troy, and I'm a constituent of Councilmember McLaren. I just want to thank you for your support of Good Cause. Thank you for really listening to us and hearing us when we come here to talk to you about it. I'll be really brief. I just wanted to, as we sit here and listen about everyone's experiences, it occurred to me to, maybe say a quick word for those people who could not be here today. As an organizer, I've had a chance to speak with many tenants throughout New York State, so I'll just give you a couple stories. Some of the people who will be, affected greatly by the Good Cause legislation are seniors who are on fixed income, and when their rents go up, what is, your solution to protect them from eviction? I've also spoken with families who've been evicted from their homes already. For example, a single mother with 2 school-age children who are currently staying in motels and being moved from one motel to another motel. And the kids, they have to switch schools a few times a year. And, how do you expect a student to be successful and, get good grades in school in these conditions? So my question to you would be, what will you do for those kids to, make sure that their futures aren't compromised? And so when you vote on Good Cause, I just want you to think about those people, when you do make your decision. And for us, as your constituents and voters, we will be considering your positions on those issues when we go to the polls in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya.
Good evening. My name is Dan Curry. I live on Tibbetts Avenue. I'm a teacher at Troy High School, and I wish to exercise my First Amendment right to support good cause eviction because of the alarming absenteeism, the chronic absenteeism within the classroom. For those unfamiliar, chronic absenteeism is when a student misses 10% or more of school days within one academic year. In a 180-day school year, that means a chronically absent student misses at least 18 days. This is a serious problem because without a regular presence in school, students fall behind their peers in reading, writing, and arithmetic. These skills are crucial for economic success in adulthood. Moreover, absenteeism fosters a culture of social isolation reminiscent of the pandemic. According to the New York Department of Education, Troy High School's chronic absenteeism rate is above the state average at 39%. Of that number, students that fall under the economically disadvantaged category are disproportionately impacted. The NYSED defines economically disadvantaged students as those, quote, who participate in or whose family participates in economic assistance programs, end quote. 69% of Troy's student body falls into this category. Among the 876 economically disadvantaged students enrolled in the 2023-24 school year, 460 were chronically absent. That is a staggering 52.5%. Compared to last year, the rate increased by 3 points. In other words, the economic situation for many of your constituents, it's getting worse. The displacement of Troy families through unregulated evictions will only inflame the problem. Troy renters need protections and stability. Please support good cause eviction to protect renters and ease the economic burden student families face. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Good evening, counselors. My name is Haley Diaz. I am a resident of Troy. I live in District 4 on 4th Street. I'm here to speak in support of good cause. Good cause legislation is not about punishing landlords. It's about making sure that the power dynamic that already exists between landlords and renters does not become exploited. Most tenants just want a decent place to call home. Many landlords simply want kind, responsible tenants. This legislation provides an even playing field for those wishes and priorities to be met. We are not advocating for disrespect or neglect on either side. We are advocating for the protection of tenants who are important and contributing members of our community. Renters are the heart of Troy. I'm here tonight to ask you for your support. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you. Are there any other folks who wish to address the council at this time?
Hey, John Kane, I just wanted to quickly point out that a couple months ago, there was a consultant sitting here who said they'd have a Q1 report for you guys. I don't see it tonight. I remember it was going to be May 21st, then May 22nd, then an extra day. There is no Q1 financial report. And yet there is a resolution for several $100,000 for new golf carts. I don't think the city should be spending money on luxuries like golf carts until they know how much money they have in their accounts. This is incredibly irresponsible of the administration. It's a bad direction for Troy at a dangerous time. I hope you guys do keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the council? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to our agenda. Local law, number 1, introductory. A local law adopting the provisions of Article 6A of the Real Property Law to make the good cause eviction law applicable in Troy, New York. Councilmember Vera, Councilmember Spain McLaren. As I mentioned, it's for introduction only. Moving on to ordinances. Ordinance 24. Ordinance authorizing settlement of claim, to wit, Moses Lugo and Cheryl Seaton versus the City of Troy, New York, United States District Court for the Northern District of New York, index number 119 CV 00067, MAD TWD. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan, second.
Second.
Councilmember Vera. Discussion on the ordinance.
Council President,
Councilmember Vera.
I'd just like to say that I had a conversation with Corporation Counsel about this and while it's unfortunate that the city finds itself in this position, that this settlement is in the best interest of the city.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 24 is adopted unanimously. Ordinance 25. Ordinance authorizing settlement of claim, to wit, Paul M. Bouchard et al. Versus City of Troy et al. Supreme Court, Rensselaer County, State of New York, index number EF 2023-274377. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan with a second by Councilmember Soriento. Discussion on the ordinance.
Council President,
Councilmember McLaren.
is there anyone here who can answer where this funding is coming from? Is this in our settlement accounts?
Thank you. Good question. Did you see the in and out of here? I don't know what.
You have a question for me?
Just about the funding for this settlement, ordinance 25.
So is that the command officers
Yeah.
versus the city of Troy?
Yeah.
All right, so the total payment of settlement amount is $65,000. Then there's the ongoing liability for the Medicare Part B reimbursements.
Right.
So I think we have enough money in contingency to pay the 65. If not, we have unappropriated funds that we would probably ask you to appropriate or transfer into that account.
Okay, so that might be forthcoming.
That would have to be forthcoming, yeah, but,
Okay.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 26 or 25 is adopted unanimously. Ordinance 26. Ordinance authorizing and approving the filing of the City of Troy's application for funding pursuant to the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, the McKinney Act Emergency Shelter Grant Program, and the Home Investment Partnership Program, and designating the mayor as the authorized representative of the city for such purposes. Council President Steele, Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Keel with a second by Councilmember Brosnan. Discussion on the ordinance.
Council President?
Councilmember McLaren.
Really just an observation. I think it's ironic maybe that we're talking about the McKinney Act emergency shelter in the same agenda where we're talking about good cause eviction and helping keep housing stable. So
Duly noted. Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 26 adopted unanimously. Moving on to resolutions. Resolution 51, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with W&B Golf Carts, Inc. for a 5-year lease of golf carts to be used at the Freer Park Golf Course. Councilmember Casey, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Keel with a second by Councilmember Soriento. Discussion on the resolution.
Council President.
Councilmember Brosnan.
No, already here.
Josh is here.
Yeah, I'm Josh Buell, golf course
On
manager,
the-
for
on
those
the
who don't know.
spot.
Yes.
Josh on the spot.
My question is, why do we need 70 golf carts for an 18-hole golf course? 75. Good.
70 carts for players, 5 for maintenance of the crew of the park in general, not just the golf course. Really, 70 doesn't even provide a number for when we have a sold out event of 144 people. We actually have to bring extra carts in for charitable tournaments when they're in there. So on a Tuesday night, when we have 4 leagues going, what's different about the afternoons at Freer Park? We have leagues that start on the first 9 and the 10th tee, right? So both 9s. So you have groups starting on both sets of the course. So by 4:45 on a Tuesday, we're out of carts and we have people waiting for carts. So 70 is the bare minimum of carts really that we would be able to use at the golf course.
How often do you have charitable events where you're asking?
For an example, every Saturday in June, we'll have an event of 144 people. So we'll bring extra carts in for every Saturday of the June month.
How are we currently procuring carts? Is it a lease or is it a?
We've always leased carts since the city's had a cart contract. It's always been a lease.
How much was the current contract for?
The current, I believe, was 73,500 a year. There's a slight increase for this year, for the new contract, I should say.
Do you know what the reason for the increase was?
Kind of the times, I guess, inflation, things like that.
You're requesting 2025 golf carts?
Yes.
Nothing older?
No,
Would it save money if we went with older golf carts?
You might save a little bit of money in the beginning, but they're going to break down quicker, and then you're going to have to start spending more. You're not going to get the quality that you're paying for. You might save, say, 78,000 is what the yearly number is in this. You could get 22 carts and spend 72,000, and then you're going to run into issues with 3-year-old carts, just like if you lease a car, things like that. The beauty of leasing the carts is they're responsible for the service of all the carts. So we don't have to pay anything out of pocket for when something goes wrong with a golf cart. The company comes, fixes it, doesn't charge us.
Are you done, Ryan?
I have one. How much are you planning on charging for cart rentals?
$14 a person for 9 holes, $20 a person for 18 holes.
All right, thank you.
Council President Steele. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think Councilmember
Okay.
McLaren had a question.
Sounds good.
Before I start, I don't want to be labeled as anti-golf course because I'm not. I grew up on that golf course. I worked I took money for tickets and I should say I sold tickets. I didn't take money. Learned how to golf there. Grew up in the neighborhood. So I'm not anti-golf course. My question is, are the golf carts that are currently in use being replaced by this contract?
That's correct. They'll take the 70 carts we have and bring a fleet of 70 new carts in.
So this is the same company that you're currently leasing from?
Correct.
Okay. And is that area that encloses them now, the temporary enclosure, is that going to hold? Is that currently what you use?
That's what we're using right now, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank
What
you.
we're actually doing, we hold 65 carts in the temporary fence area. And then we hold 5 carts in the old facility, and we're using that as our employee parking lot currently for the employees to work out of there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Casey.
Thank you, Council President Steele. I just really didn't have a question, but I do have a comment. Several years ago, I took up golf. I was the worst golfer you ever saw in your life. I'm a little bit better now. I do it for exercise. I play 3 times a week, or try to, with my friends. And we rent carts. We have season passes we pay for. They're not cheap. But every time we play,
every person that foursome pays $20. And as you look across the golf course, which is usually full, now they've made this a jewel, great golf course of the Capital District. Everybody, $80, $80, $80, and it continues every single day at that golf course. This is quite the moneymaker for the city of Troy, and it well exceeds this contract. And let me just say on this, some of the comments, this is a jewel of Troy. It's just like Rocking on the River or concert series here, concert series. People love the golf course. The residents of Troy love the golf course. It brings other people to Troy. They love it.
Please,
Please, people.
we have one speaker at a time. You had your opportunity. It is now his opportunity. Thank you.
And while I got a chance, I will speak about the Tavern on the Green and the comments about that. You say people don't love it. Everybody I know loves that. I had been in that facility previously in Saratoga Polo. It was beautiful. It is a beautiful place now. I urge you to go see it. It is run by Brad Stevens, who was an executive chef as a young man at Martha's Vineyard, and at times has run numerous restaurants, which it's unbelievable how hard that is this day and age. He is just well-known and respected in his field, and he runs a wonderful establishment, and you should try going there. It is beautiful. It's a great space. I don't know where you're getting, everybody I know thinks it's just a wonderful place, and I urge you to go there. But like I said, getting back to the carts, these carts make a lot of money for the city. Okay, and let me just say this. When everybody was up here, we were very respectful, and we're happy to hear from you. And it's not the way you should be catcalling and things, because we didn't do that to you. And you should stop it immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Council
other
President.
questions? Councilmember Brosnan.
Do you have an estimation on how many people use the golf carts per week? Sorry.
That would be hard for me to answer. I don't know. All I'll say is the cart lease is going to be $78,000 a year. Last year, we took on over $300,000 in golf cart revenue. So just $78,000 we're paying to lease the carts. We'll take in over $300,000 in cart. I'm just talking about carts. I'm not talking about everything else. But the cart revenue was over $300,000 last year.
Thank you.
Look, can I just add something, President Steele? I just want to say that without golf carts, nobody would golf, and the golf course would just collapse. Okay, we would close up. It'd be the end of the golf course, which some people believe that's a good thing. I don't understand that, but you have to have golf carts. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh, just to clarify, the previous lease expired,
It did, yes.
and so we're going with the same firm.
They had the
providing-
lowest proposal when the RFP went out. They're the lowest amount.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to have that on the record.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Council President,
Councilmember Vera.
I just want to confirm the number that you just stated.
Yep.
So we bring in 3x the revenue of this contract.
For golf carts, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 51 is adopted unanimously. Resolution 52. Resolution of the Troy City Council supporting the Community Development Block Grant and Home Programs in the federal fiscal year 2026. Budget, Councilmember Spain McLaren. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan, second?
Second.
Councilmember Soriento. Discussion?
Council President,
Councilmember,
do we have a copy of the letter that this is about drafting a letter to send to?
no,
No.
no. This is a resolution of the city council supporting these programs on the federal level that will be sent to, and it's listed in the legislation, who it will be sent to.
Okay, is there a copy of the letter?
There is no letter.
This
The
actual
resolution,
is what
the
gets sent.
resolution gets in its entirety, gets sent to federal officials stating where we stand on this issue. That we support these programs. They're critical to the city of Troy. Okay,
All right.
got it?
Thank you.
Great. Separate from that, the mayor sent a letter. And that's a totally separate issue. We're two branches of government with our own opinions. And so we as a legislative body have proposed and hopefully will adopt this legislation showing our concern, should these programs go away.
Fair enough.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 52 is adopted unanimously. Resolution 53, resolution declaring support for LGBTQ plus Pride Month in Troy, New York. Council President Steele, is there a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember
Second.
Brosnan, seconded by Councilmember McLaren. Discussion on the resolution?
Council President,
Councilmember Vera,
I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
does anyone else wish to be added as a co-sponsor?
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to go?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
So if the clerk would please add council members Vera, Brosnan, and McLaren. That's appreciated. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Resolution is adopted. 6 ayes, 1 nay.
Can I make I should
I'm
have,
sorry.
you didn't offer discussion.
I did.
Oh, yeah, she did.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to?
No, that's okay.
Resolution 54, resolution authorizing the mayor to submit the city of Troy's 5-year strategic consolidated plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Council President Steele, Councilmember Casey, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Wow. I'm going to go with Councilmember Vera and a second by Councilmember Brosnan. And I see Carolyn in the wings. So if there are any questions for her, she's available.
Well, I think we should have her come up because she's here. So
Do you want to make a
Hour and a half.
statement?
I do have a couple of quick questions. for
Okay,
you.
here we go. Councilmember Vera.
So we reviewed the plan. You gave us the presentation at a workshop. Have there been any, I guess, discussions among your colleagues, maybe from other municipalities about the status of this funding at the federal level?
This funding right now is secured. We've gotten approval for this money. This is the exact dollar amount that we will be receiving for this fiscal year.
Okay, and then in terms of the, I know your department does a lot, but specifically the sidewalk replacement program, what projects are currently funded? We have the funding in this year's budget for State Street. Is that
Half of
correct?
State Street.
Half of State Street,
Yeah.
okay. And then is this funding for the next year? I know your years are offset,
It'll
right?
Be effective July 1st of this year and then end June 30th of next year.
Okay, so this time next year
Yes.
is when we would,
Our next round. will-
when we may not have this funding if, okay. And then what are the other projects that you're up in Lansingburg somewhere right
Yes,
now?
on Second.
Second, okay. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Carol? Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 54 is adopted unanimously. Resolution 55. Resolution of the Troy City Council scheduling a public hearing in connection with proposed local law number 1 of 2025, adopting Article 6A of the real property tax law to make the good cause eviction law applicable in Troy, New York. Councilmember Vera, Councilmember Spain McLaren. We need to set a date because that's blank in the body of the resolution. I'm suggesting June 16th at 5:30. Does that work for All members?
Mhm.
Tom? Does that work for you?
I don't even, we're not approving it, I don't think, or
I'm sorry.
have to vote on this?
We have to vote on this, don't we?
Well, we're trying to set a date.
Okay.
It's blank at this point in time. So we're just so that we can fill in the blanks
Sure.
and adopt the resolution in its
Okay.
entirety. We have that June 16th will be the next finance meeting. It will be the night that we will be having our quarterly report presentation at 6 o'clock. So 5:30. At 5:30 would work.
Mhm.
Okay, I would, a motion please to move 55 forward. Is there a motion? So move. Second,
Second.
the resolution has been moved and seconded. All in favor or first discussion on the resolution?
Council President.
Councilmember McLaren.
I feel compelled to say a couple things about this based on some of the discussion that we've heard. I know good cause isn't gonna solve all of the problems for all of the tenants in Troy. But I think there's a lot to be said for people who are disproportionately disadvantaged. I teach at school too, which is in the heart of North Central, which is our most impoverished school in our district. I have seen firsthand the devastation that is caused by a family being coded out of their apartment for things that they have complained about and were not heard. In the middle of the night, ceilings collapsing on families and they've been displaced. And I don't know if other people can really see the perspective of the children and the parents of those families and the devastation that it causes. You know, Mr. Curry talked about the absenteeism. That's a real thing. It's a real detriment to an already difficult situation when kids come to school to learn when their entire lives are turned upside down, causes many traumatic, adverse childhood experiences, which follow them. You know, if you've got this kind of experience as a child, chances are it's going to haunt you for a long time to come. And I'm sure Mr. Curry is seeing some of the products of that in the high school. Kids who were displaced as children. And we don't really call it homeless in school now. We call it unhoused, or we call families displaced. They're put in shelters, they're put in hotels, and like someone mentioned, they're moved from hotel to hotel. Our school district, because of the McKinney Act that we just voted on, but in a different capacity, the schools are required to transport and keep children in their home school with the hope that their apartment gets remedied and they're able to move back in. But right now we're seeing it. I can count 5 families right off the top of my head who we won't see next year because that was not remedied. And they've had to go on from living in a hotel to finding housing in a different area because what they once had is no longer available. And it's heartbreaking. And it's real and it happens every day and it's affecting everyday families and people. And most heartbreaking for me is the children that I see every day. So will this fix all of that for all of them? No, it won't, but it's going to go a long way towards hopefully stabilizing the neighborhoods that I see kids from every day.
Thank you. Do we have any other
Council President,
Councilmember Keel?
I'm in real estate. When something costs the landlord more money, if there are more costs, the costs get passed to the tenant. And a lot of times, all these complaints are somebody took the lowest cost rental unit available. And you know, it's almost kind of, it works out that way. Just saw a video recently where Troy is one of the lowest price rented areas in all of New York State. If you want to go next, it's down to Hornell. So we have a good thing going here. And I don't have landlords that are backing my reelection. If anything, it should be tenants that are coming my way and saying, yeah, Bill, we don't want our rents raised. We don't want to pay more in rent every month because of good cause eviction. And that's going to be what's happening if good cause eviction ever passes. You're shaking your head no, but that's what's going to happen. And tenants are going to say, we don't want this. So, and I don't either.
Let him speak, please. You had your turn.
Excuse
It's
me,
his turn now.
Councilmember, please. No.
You want higher, if you want higher costs for landlords, you pass this good cause eviction and that gets passed on to the tenants, I guarantee it.
Okay.
I will not support this legislation and anything to do with good cause eviction as far as this goes. And you can hiss all day long and be rude out there, but we respected you and listened to you, every bit of your comments for a long, long time. Sorry, I had to get my 2 minutes in. Thank you.
Folks, I would please ask you, thank you, Bill. I would please ask you to refrain from responding. As again, I said previously, you had your opportunity. It is now our opportunity to speak. And at this point, I'm going to take my opportunity to speak because it's pretty apparent that this will be the last we're going to see or hear about good cause eviction from this council. And it's very upsetting and it's a shame. I also want to go on record. I would have been on this as a sponsor, but we have learned from the majority of this council that if the three of the minority members sponsor something, then that leaves no one to move it forward for discussion. So one person has to stay back to move it forward, as I did tonight. So I just want you to understand that I am fully in support of good cause. I want to thank all of you for coming forward the many months that you have. You have made your arguments succinctly. I regret that there still is misunderstanding. I don't understand why, after all that has been said and the excellent presentation we received tonight, there still remains misunderstanding, but there is. Again, thank you all for your work, and I hope that you continue your efforts and your work in surveying the tenants, the residents, was an excellent endeavor. And again, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Council President.
Councilmember Brosnan.
A few months ago, I had a couple of the organizers of Good Cause Troy come to my apartment and we spoke for a few hours. They had very convincing cases. However, at the end of the meeting we had, I felt the same way, that good cause eviction is treating a problem in the wrong area of Troy. I don't think it does enough. And that's how we left the meeting, was I had the feeling of it doesn't do enough for the tenants of Troy. This year was a 3.79% increase to the CPI. So any landlord who raises rent less than 8.79% would be considered a good landlord. I don't think that's the proper metric to be judging how much a rental increase should be seen as positive. I don't think limiting property owners in that way is going to be beneficial to the property owner or the tenant. I think it breeds more hate than cohesive working together feeling. When I spoke to people in Albany that deal with this every day, a lot of the good landlords that I had spoken to had said they're looking to sell their properties because good cause has made it hard to be a good landlord. I know I've heard that multiple times that isn't the case. However, a good landlord is apprehensive, slow to conduct an eviction for any reason. Slumlords aren't. You're going to have good landlords dragging their feet to rent or to evict someone. And it takes longer in Albany to evict people now, which isn't an issue. However, when you have a good landlord being punished for bad landlords, they're not going to stay. There's no reason to. A lot of the issues in Troy are through things that aren't addressed in good cause eviction. If you have an apartment with code issues and you report it, good cause does not help you in any way, shape, or form. The only metric, the only course of action that you still have is to put your rent in an escrow account, hold it from your landlord, and then go to court. If you do report something to code and your landlord does take action against you, there's already laws in the book where landlords aren't allowed to retaliate against you. If you feel as if though that you're not being provided a lease renewal in a retaliatory way, you can already go to court and fight that. I don't think that this does enough. I think that if we did look at Albany, they do have a way of beefing up code with annual inspections. And I think that's a much better way of treating the symptoms of Troy and the issue of the slumlords in Troy. I don't think this will help anyone other than the slumlords. That is why I am not in favor of it.
Does anyone else wish to? Excuse me.
Council
again.
President, I have one more
Again,
thing to add.
I've asked repeatedly for decorum and respect, and I'm not hearing it, and I'm really getting upset about this. So please, we listened to you. We did not be rude to you. Please do not be rude to us.
An important part of the union is collective bargaining. If I bring a bad contract in front of the union, they're not going to vote yes. You cannot trade out the bottom part of your union and still say you're being pro-union. If we sell out the people that are the most disparaged in our city, that way the people that are above them feel less burdened, then you're not doing anything pro-union. You're not doing anything pro-renter. You're passing something to feel good about yourself. This does not solve the problems in Troy. It doesn't. And to say it's anti-union, to say a bad contract came in front of me and I'm voting no, we deserve better as renters in Troy, is not a bad take. Sit down, think about it. Because if I came to you and said, I'm going to give you a 9% rent increase, be happy that it's not more, you would not be happy. If I said, hey, you live in a terrible apartment, but you get a new lease at the end of this, be happy. That is not a good collective bargain. That is not a good deal for the renter of Troy. We're going to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Casey.
Thank you, President Steele. Well, I wrote a lot of notes, but I had to add a few. So bear with me. I also want to quickly say years ago, I did take care of that building that was Norders. And while I was there, there were definitely smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, because I would never even close my eyes in a house that didn't have either of those. That a lot of people die that way. I just want to say, I realize everyone's passionate, but I've received no phone calls on this, no emails. And recently there was a property that people wanted awarded to someone. I received 40 emails, I think. I got nothing. There's 16 people watching online. I just don't see the passion for this, but I hear the passion here. I realize that everyone here is for this and they think it's the right thing to do. But I also have seen in New York a lot of times and recently unintended consequences of legislation. Just recently, New York State changed the rules on animal shelters, which created just a horrible situation with animal shelters. Criminal justice reform, we've seen the definitely negatives of that. You'd have to be in denial. But I'll tell you, the eviction reforms, and I'm not going to get into this, but it severely hurt many good tenants and rewarded bad tenants. And that's a fact. If anybody wants the details, I'll tell you. It is rewarded bad tenants and hurt good tenants. And of course, we have the top one where the crime wave and the bloodshed and just the pain and hurt in the wake of the wrong-headed defund the police movement, which was just a blight on this country. But you have to understand, not everybody feels the way you do. And it's respectfully. I don't agree with everybody up here, but believe me, these are good, fine people. And everybody got up here for the most part. Other people had disparaging things, are good people. We just disagree. Doesn't mean you're not informed, doesn't mean you're evil or you're in somebody's pocket. We just respectfully disagree. And that's what you have to understand. I don't feel you have evil in your hearts, and we don't either. As far as being on the right, I mean, to be honest, this week it's Troy Indivisible. Lately, it's been Troy DSA. And out of respect, 90,000 people in this country say they belong to Democratic Socialist America. That's compared to 36 million Republicans, 45 million Democrats, one out of 100 senators, and only a handful of House members out of 435. So
I have no idea.
while you believe 100% in your cause, most people, and other causes, most people respectfully disagree. Many people feel that good cause eviction is a violation of their Fifth Amendment rights of the Constitution that protects the rights of private property. In my opinion, good cause violates this. Let me tell you, I've told you before a little bit of history about myself. I inspected every apartment in the Troy housing complex. We have tons of housing. I was Troy's Section 8 inspector, making sure those people had a decent place to live, which they deserve because they were the most vulnerable. I was there holding a landlords accountable. I was a renter for many years up to a couple of years ago. And I was a property owner at one point. And I also, at one point, managed 28 buildings in the area. And I learned firsthand that some homeowners weren't the best at it. They certainly weren't, but that's what I helped them with. So I understand what's being said. And what I noticed, found out, is most homeowners were pretty good people. They weren't all that great at it. They wanted to be. Maybe they couldn't find maintenance people, but they were good-hearted people. I never met one that was a millionaire. I'll tell you that. Never met one single one that was a millionaire. Most were trying to build a retirement or making a living out of it. I'm going to give you a story. Judy, very nice woman from Brooklyn, got a little money in a divorce, a little bit of money. She was able to come to Troy and buy two unit buildings. And that was going to be her retirement. Well, COVID came along and the governor decided to tell people they didn't have to pay rent. Judy lost everything. That was everything. She gambled it all on Troy and she lost everything. There were a couple of brothers I knew that decided to be own property. And they had quite a few properties they did very well. But in the wake of COVID, they lost everything and they had to change careers. They lost everything. And that's the difference between a renter and an owner. Faced with tax increases, insurance rates, and other expenses, we're going to limit, say you limit rent raises. They have a chance of losing everything. Renters get a U-Haul and move on. It's the same when people try to make the correlation between employer and employee. There's not an equal footing there. When the door is closed, the employee walks out and gets another job. The employer has lost everything. It's not an equal partnership. I know a man that people weren't paying him, and he had one apartment paying him, and the furnace went out. And I was there with codes, and he says, I have no money. No money to fix this furnace. The building went vacant and is an eyesore to this day. I can't imagine an owner who owns a property having to ask and beg a judge to be able to raise his rent on his property. And let me just remark, this is one of my notes, Troy evictions being the hardest. Well, I was for many years a city marshal doing evictions. Most people are evicted in Troy because they're not paying rent. And they're not paying rent because the state made it much harder to evict. People are taking losses. And that's part of the reason why people's rents are going up. The good people who pay rent are paying for the people who aren't. And that also leads me to mention about holdovers. You also have in state law now where everybody's name has to be on the eviction notice, on the warrant of eviction. So what will happen is there'll be one person's name and they'll answer the door. They're not here when you go to evict them. I'm here and I live here. Not on the paperwork. Well, I live here. Okay, now they have to go back to court on a holdover eviction and start the process all over again. And when they get to the door after all this work and all this money with the lawyers again, there's somebody else who says they live there, even though the other person still does too. It goes on and on and on and on. Well, let me tell you, I field calls from constituents all the time, and I've helped with codes. So they have a decent place to raise their families. It's a very serious thing. We've heard stories of landlords, I've heard stories of landlords that I've told tenants, I'm going to be honest, this is a bad landlord. Get away from him. You're going to have to move. This is just a bad guy. It doesn't matter what law you have. Get away from this person. They're unscrupulous. They're not a good landlord, and they're never going to be. And this isn't going to make them any good. This law will not fix this situation. But I also understand the plight of some tenants. I got a call from a lady last week, 15 years in an apartment. 3 units, but it was really 4. Long story. With rising cost, after 15 years, even though she occupied 2 units at the price of 1, he said, I have to make it into 4. It already had a bathroom, already had a kitchen. Code came, approved it. It's going to be 4 units. She has to either move to 1 or pay both. I felt for her. But in the end, it was this gentleman's building. He put the down payment, he pays the rent, he takes the risk, he carries the insurance. That's his choice. It's his building. And if you don't agree, the only thing to solve it, renters are renters. And they could be faced with all these things. The only answer is to try to buy your own home. Well, I had 3 jobs in order to get a down payment. Renters may have to move, buildings are sold, rent are raised. Like I said, the person put the down payment, they pay the mortgage, and sometimes they decide to go in a different direction. Sometimes they sell the building. As far as pricing, I just want to address this. People have come from down, and I understand this as a Troy renter for years. People have come to Troy and overpaid for houses because they say, oh my God, I can't believe this house is going for this. And they overpay for a house in Troy. And when I property managed, the owners would say, I want to charge this. I'd say, that's insane. We don't pay rent. Nobody pays rents like this around here. But guess what? Somebody was right there from downstate to say, I can't believe this apartment is so cheap. And they paid the higher price, squeezing the people from Troy that weren't used to paying those kind of rents. They've come up, they have no problem paying rents that I never thought of paying in the city of Troy. And that's led to a lot of the rent increases. It certainly has. You know, of course, also because people aren't paying rent. You're paying for people that aren't paying rent. I have to say, and this is the meat of what I want to say, I'm getting close. I recently spoke to someone in Albany who is an expert and does this every day with evictions, said they have 0 evictions for anything but non-payment in the city of Albany since good cause eviction. Lease violations. You're living in a building, say a 4-unit, and you have a bad tenant. You're suffering in the building with this bad tenant. You're all suffering. And everybody wants this person out. They go in front of the judge, they go, we're not doing that anymore. Judge goes, dismissed. And they said, it happens again. And they go back to court. They say, we're not doing it anymore. The judge will just say, dismissed. How about this one? Story, they're living in a multi-unit building. One woman refused to do anything about bugs, roaches. The building was infested. I actually dealt with this when I lived on Clinton Avenue. I had a tenant who refused to do anything because of chemicals. I had to live with roaches. These people lived with a bad infestation problem with roaches. The judge said, you have to open the door to spray. The owner said, I don't want this person in my building. It's my building. I don't want this person. They're dirty. They're bringing, I saw this in Section 8, people who got their rent cut off, landlords, because someone laid food all around. This person was unclean, did nothing, didn't want to spray for roaches. The whole building's infested. Everybody else there, decent people, had to live with these roaches. And the judge says, well, you got to open the door. Okay, that's once. So when the person doesn't open the door again and they have to live with roaches again, then they go back to court after all this, and all the other good tenants have to suffer. Again, nothing. And that's good cause. They can't get rid of anybody. And good cause makes this happen. So let me say by closing, again, these homeowners, they invested in their properties. We always established that we got great code enforcement. Call code enforcement. I do on people. Call code enforcement. They'll come right out. Yes, they do. They're great people. They've been around the city for years. I went to school with many of these people. I've known them for years. They're wonderful people. They're ready to come out. We already established, and I always told landlords, somebody's not paying you, you better not do anything against these people. That judge will rip you to shreds. And it's true.
Thank you, Tom.
Well, and when constituents call, I make sure I notify codes and in numerous instances, community police to solve the issues because I care about these people and how they live. Listen, bad landlords aren't going to be magically, people who don't care about any bad landlords aren't going to be magically great landlords by good cause eviction. I don't think this does that. And that's why I respectfully am voting no. Thank you. Thank you very much, too, for
Thank
being
you, Tom.
respectful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other
Thanks.
comments?
We're still talking about scheduling the public hearing.
We are still talking about scheduling the public hearing. I'm sorry, please.
Thank you. I know.
Any other comments? We're talking about the public hearing. But it doesn't look like we have any other comments. Okay, I just want to personally say, I don't think anyone expected good cause to solve all the problems of the world. And certainly it's a complicated issue, but it was a good first step. And I'm sorry that it looks like it's going down.
President Steele, can I just say something quickly?
Again?
I just want to say that also, we have been on this council for a good long time. And we've heard about good cause eviction for a good long time, but we only see it at the very start of an election season. Just saying, we could have seen it last year also, people, but we just see it now.
That's right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Opposed.
The public hearing is not going to be held. Uh, Any other, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. If there's, does anyone have any
Motion.
information? Do you have something you want to say?
No.
No. Okay. We have a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Keel, second by,
Second.
Second.
by Sir Ianto.
I didn't say anything, Sue, but I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Quick ask,
Oh, it was Brosnan. All right. Brosnan
ask.
and Soriento.
Council Pres.
Yes.
Quick ask, Memorial Day Parade, hopefully all come out Monday, 1:00. It's leaving Lansingburg High. I'll go up to the Berg Firehouse, take a left, take another left onto Second, and we'll end up at Powers Park for a ceremony. Hope to see you all there.
I got.
Where